topic for our satsang is living in God's presence. It's a very, very important topic. And I would like to begin by quoting one of the saying by a saint. I don't know who it is, but it's a beautiful quote. And he says, "All time is wasted that is not spent in seeking God." All time is wasted that is not spent in seeking God. Swamiji in one of his talks said it is by Sukhdev, but I'm not very sure. And Lahiri Mahashayaji says, the divine search was the only work that was given to man. This is a very high statement. The divine search was the only work that was given to man. And it is said by a self-realized master, Lahiri Mahashayaji. And I feel what he really means is that after 8 million incarnations, we have got this human body, and only it is in this body, with this brain, with this nervous system, it is possible to experience and to realize God. And the fact that our soul has finally got this body, which means that really our only purpose is to realize God. Our only work here is to really feel God, to know God, because that is why we have been given this human body. That is why we have this nervous system and this very well-refined brain given by God. And Swamiji also in one of his talks, he said that, I will just quote him. He says, you have to learn to bring that divine consciousness down into that deeper body of subconscious, which determines how your natural response to all situations. This you cannot do in a day. I will repeat it again. You have to learn to bring that divine consciousness down into that deeper body of subconscious, which determines your natural response to all situations. And the most important line here is, this you cannot do in a day. And a lot of times we feel that going to the temple once in 6 months or coming to a place like this, when we are really, disturbed in our life and we really need some peace or some, being again feeling good. So when then we come to places like this to feel a little uplifted, to feel these uplifted vibrations once in 6 months. But really that will not help. That is not going to bring back the peace. That is not going to help us feel that divine consciousness. And it is only this consciousness, this uplifted consciousness, which has the power to shift, to make a change within ourselves, in our subconscious state, which has our habits and tendencies, which we are carrying from lifetimes and for incarnations. So it's not going to change by coming here once in 6 months, once in 3 months, until we make that contact with that divine on a daily basis. And Yogananda ji says minute by minute basis. Minute by minute, he says minutes are more important than years. Until we make that contact again and again, we will not lift to that level of consciousness which will have the power to change us from within. And until we change from within, we are going to respond to life situations in the same manner, which we all know that it has not worked. That is why we are here. And it will never work until that shift happens. Only when that shift happens in your tendencies, in our habits, will we respond in a different way. And when we respond in a different way, our life is going to start changing and everything will start changing. So he says it does not happen in a day. We will have to make that contact again and again. Yogananda ji also says that samadhi does not come by mere intellectual willingness. That, oh, I have understood what the state of samadhi is, and so by willing samadhi, I am going to be in samadhi. It does not come. Yogananda ji says, he says, it comes by daily practice of meditation, Kriya Yoga, and devotion. And this takes time. It cannot happen in a day. Daily making that contact, daily bringing God's consciousness, that presence of God into our lives, minute by minute, moment by moment. Only that can shift things, only that can bring us to a state where we can, actually it's not that when we come, after months, that we are not going to be helped and God does not want to help. God wants to help every moment. These masters, they want to help us. But it is only that we are not receptive of that help. Because God will help us at His level with subtle guidance which will come from our soul. And if we are not connecting to that soul, which is actually a part of this infinite spirit, which is the part of God, and which will come with the presence of God. If we are not connecting to that soul with that spirit on a daily basis, where will the guide? We will not receive that guidance. So even if God wants to help us, we will not be able to receive that help, that grace and that blessing. Swamiji says that living in the presence of God, it means that thinking about God, knowing that this creation is God's, we all are created by God, and always being aware that whenever you are doing something, it is God doing through you. Whenever you are interacting with other people, it is the divine within them that you are interacting with. And Swamiji says that is what is living in the presence of God. He says when you're eating, here we start with a prayer. We think about God. We offer the food to God first and then we eat. When we go to work, feel that, you are working for God. When you are with your family, when you're taking care of your children, feel that they are God's children. They are divine beings. And we are helping God in that way. We are helping divine beings in that way. When we are with our neighbors, Swamiji says, feel that oneness with them, that we all have come from the same source, always being aware of that fact that we've come from the same source, that everything is God. And I was really reflecting, and I always felt that it is very idealistic. Practically, it is not possible. Always be thinking that God is acting through me. Somebody has hurt me, but to see the divine, I will never be able to see the divine. I was always feeling like that. And recently, I went to Calcutta. Last week I was in Calcutta, but for a week or 10 days. My family had some issue, and so I went to just help. And I was... when I was there, of course, we've decided that we meditate twice. So I would sit, meditate twice. Initially, in the initial days, the meditations were nice. But gradually, I was getting more and more involved in sorting out the issues there, organizing things there. And my mind was so much there that even when I was meditating, I was really thinking about those issues. Okay, now I have to do this before I go. I have to finish this. I was really not making that contact. I was really not thinking about God. And towards the end, I distinctly feel that I was feeling disconnected. Because ideally we are a soul. We are a spark of that God. If we are not connecting to that God, we are not going to feel connected to our own self. And I realized this tangibly. There was one time a friend who came and he was, talking about spiritual things, this and that, and quoting this saint, that saint. And certain things I felt were very different, and because of Yogananda ji's teachings, I had a different perspective to it. And I felt I should give a suggestion. But frankly, I was not feeling connected within, so I didn't understand how to say, what to say, and I just kept quiet. And then I came here last week, the whole week I was here. I was back to my good meditation routine. I was coming here at the ashram almost every day for some or the other thing. And so I was more in this uplifted presence, more thinking about God, more thinking about serving my guru. My meditations were more solid. And I really then, I took a pause, and I felt that what is the difference when this last week and that previous week that I was in Calcutta. And I really felt something was different inside. I felt more centered, more connected to my soul, more connected with myself. I was asking God, what should I do, this and that. And usually you get a right response. Usually you know this is the right thing to do somehow. But I wasn't getting it there. And here, immediately, I was getting solutions. I was knowing that, this is the right thing to do. This is what I should do. I was able to draw guidance and inspiration because I was more in the presence of this divine presence, this uplifted presence. I was more connected. I was more thinking about God in this way. And I really felt that now if I had to reply to that person, to answer, to suggest, I know what I want to say, which I didn't because I didn't feel connected. And it was really now that I realized how important it is. I have been hearing this, that, be in the presence of God and think about God. And when you eat, think about God. When you talk to others, think about God. When you work. But I was always feeling it is practically not possible. But now I realized how important it is. And each one of you are going to feel that. And you would have felt that when you come here on Sundays for a satsang and you are here for a longer time, even for classes, even after going home, how do you feel? And sometimes throughout the week you have not come. Sometimes you don't come for months. And how do you feel? You feel different. There is something that changes. And that made me realize that this is not like when you have the time, you invite God and feel the presence of God. It is a need. It is our need that we bring God's presence every moment. Why? Because our life is going to flow more smoothly. There was something I was a little worried about last week, that what if it goes wrong? And that thing didn't happen. I think we bring more grace into our life. Our life flows more smoothly, more gracefully when we are connecting, when we are bringing God into our daily life constantly. We are in His grace. Swamiji also says, I had read it somewhere, but then I was really trying to find it, but I couldn't find it. He said that the amount of grace that you can draw is directly proportional to the amount of love and devotion you offer to God. The amount of grace that we can draw from God is directly proportional to the amount of love and devotion that we offer to God. It really moved me. And I realized that, yes, Swamiji says, Master says, loving God is actually everything. Master also, Swamiji's quote said this, that Master used to say that loving God, devotion to God, it is even more important than any of the yogic techniques that we are doing. It is more important than reading and knowing the Vedas, the scriptures, and all those things. It is more important than our karmas, because once we are in God's grace, God can remove and sideline our karmas in a minute. And there is Master had a song that in where Divine Mother is saying that to the devotee, that, "Oh devotee, if you will ask for salvation, I will give you salvation. But don't ask for love and devotion. Because if you ask for love and devotion, then I have to give myself away." Love is the only thing that God really wants, and we really have to offer to God. Everything else really anyways belongs to God. And Master here, in this song, he actually says that ask for God's love and devotion, because God will not be able to resist your love and devotion if we love God. And also we see that when we are really in love with someone, when you had a relationship which was fairly new and you had that person in mind, you automatically, naturally are thinking about that person. You don't have to make an effort. And I realized this because I was always thinking that how is it possible to be in the presence of God minute by minute, think of God all the time. But now I feel that if we can increase our devotion, our love for God, if we love God in that way with a longingness and yearning, it is possible. And Swamiji also says that to bring God's presence into your life, he says, put a reminder. Every half an hour, put a reminder, oh, now I have to think of God. So that even when you're working in your office and all, you're not forgetting Him, only remembering Him in the morning and in the day, or sometimes not even doing that. But you're remembering Him every half an hour. And Swamiji says when we do that, gradually we form a habit. It becomes a habit, and then you don't need these reminders, because our devotion, our love becomes so strong that automatically we are going to feel God's presence in our lives all the time, moment by moment, when we eat, when we talk, when we are doing whatever we are doing. And we feel that God is doing through us, we are interacting with God. So really, put a reminder and see. And when we are in the presence of God, our life just flows gracefully. There is a lot of grace, and it is directly proportional to the amount of love we are going to give Him, to the number of times we are going to think of God. If we think of Him at 6 months, once in 6 months, He will say, oh, I have someone more important praying for me every day. I would rather attend to Him. And this is true. And I would like to now, and so it is now I really realize that it is not if we can or not, but it is our need to be in this divine consciousness, because we are spiritual divine beings ourselves. And so only then we can function completely, perfectly, accurately, and gracefully in this world. And I would like to now end with this quote from Rays of One Light. And it is a quote actually from the Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter. And it says, "One who beholds my presence everywhere and all things dwelling equally in me, he never loses loving sight of me, nor I of him through all eternity." If we will not lose sight of Him, of God, God will also not lose sight of us. And we are constantly going to be in a flow of God's grace and God's blessings. Oh.
To live in God's presence, there's a great obstacle. There's one single obstacle which we usually face. And that could be easily explained through this story. Larry Mahashaya and Swami Sri Yukteswarji narrates this story that to a group of students, Paramhansa Yogananda started a school in Ranchi, and he took his students to Swami Sri Yukteswar to visit, for a visit. And Yukteswarji was sharing this story. He said once his friend Ramu was his best friend. They were inseparable. He got ill. He fell ill, and he had Asiatic cholera, and it was a deadly disease then. And Yukteswarji ran to Larry Mahashaya and he asked for his help. In his mind, he thought that if Larry Mahashaya would give me some medicine, and if I could give that medicine to Ramu, I can save him. And Larry Mahashaya would just smile and tell to Swami Sri Yukteswar, the doctors are attending him. He will be saved, don't worry. So he will go back to his home, but then he will see his friend even more ill and almost at the verge of dying. He will rush back to Lahiri Mahashaya and say that Ramu is almost dying, you have to help him. And Yukteswarji would say he will be all right. And he again runs back to his friend, and by this time his friend is already dead. And he runs back to Lahiri Mahashaya and said, my friend is already dead. And he asks, Lahiri Mahashaya asks him, how is Ramu? With a smile in his face. He said, when can I see him? And he will say like, yeah, of course you can see him. He is going to be carried away to be burnt. And Yukteswarji wouldn't be able to control his emotion. He would cry out loud in front of Lahiri Mahashaya. And Lahiri Mahashaya would say, sit down and meditate. And they will meditate through the night. And early in the morning, Lahiri Mahashaya will say, why don't you come here and why don't you tell me that you needed a medicine, you were hoping to get a medicine from me for your friend. Take this castor oil and pour 7 drops into his mouth and he will be fine. And Yukteswarji would say, he is already dead. Dead since yesterday noon. Lahiri Mahashaya will again say, go and do what I say. And he takes the oil and his friend has been dead for hours. He tries to open his teeth and he poured 7 drops of oil, and at the 7th, when the 7th drop of oil touched his teeth, his friend would come back. He would wake up from his sleep. Just like waking up from his sleep, he would come back alive. And both of them, he would say, I saw Lahiri Mahashaya in a blaze of a light. And he said, come to me with Yukteswar and meet me. So both of them go. And now Yukteswarji is asking Lahiri Mahashaya, what did I miss? And Lahiri Mahashaya funnily says that, I'm sure from now onwards you will be taking a bottle full of castor oil with you wherever you go. All it needs is 7 drops and you can bring anyone back alive. But then the lesson here is, where do you think the healing came from? From the castor oil or from Lahiri Mahashaya's grace? It's Lahiri Mahashaya's grace. And this is what Christ also said when he quoted that, I am the vine and you are the branch. As long as you are connected to me, you will feel alive. When you lose that connection, you are no better than a twig. People will gather you and burn you. So we need to understand and we need to be conscious of the fact that everything that this whole creation is God's drama, and everything we do, it might be work, it might be meditation, it doesn't matter what kind of activity, but the power comes from God. As long as we are attuned to that power, we are safe. And in another story, Swami Kebalananda coaxes his blind friend, brother disciple, to go to Lahiri Mahashaya and ask him that, Lahiri Mahashaya is, of course, a great avatar. You go and ask him, why shouldn't he bless you with the power of sight? And his brother disciple was blind from birth, since birth. And he goes and asks Lahiri Mahashaya that, he wasn't very casually asking. He was feeling a little shy for asking something earthly from such a great avatar. Nonetheless, he asked for help. And Lahiri Mahashaya said that, oh, Rama, somebody has planned this and somebody wanted to put me in a difficult situation. I don't have any healing power. And his disciple will reply that, but the infinite God which resides in you certainly has that power. And Larry Mahashaya replies, says, that is different, Ramu. God's limit is nowhere. And then he blesses him. Larry Mahashaya demonstrated that we have to be attuned to that power of God. And without that power, through that power, only through that power can we heal ourselves, can we also walk towards liberation. And Paramhansa Yogananda also says that it was evident in all miracles performed by Larry Mahashaya that he never allowed the ego principle to consider itself a causative force. By perfection of resistless surrender, the Master enabled the prime healing power to flow freely through him. The key word is resistless surrender. And Swami Kriyananda says that the path to enlightenment is narrow. God and mortal ego cannot walk it together side by side. One of them must inevitably make way for the other. So what stops us from receiving that divine flow is that resistless surrender which we are not able to offer, and usually that's because of our likes and dislikes. And how do we overcome that? Again, with the help of God. Offer your likes and dislikes at the Guru's feet, at God's feet. There's an example which is usually said that if you are having a handful of seeds and you want them to grow into a tree, a handful of, let's say, mango seeds. You want them to become a mango tree, but all you do is to pray to God that the seed should become a tree. Maybe you can practice few visualization, you can take it from temple to temple, get it blessed from saints, but the seed will never sprout unless it is sown into the soil. Similarly, we have to sow ourselves in the presence of God. Without God's help, all the techniques we practice will not be fruitful. And techniques are the only thing we have in hand to reap God's help. Swami Kriyananda once was practicing chanting day and night so that he could cultivate devotion, because his master asked him to do so. And once, after practicing chanting for a few days, he heard Paramhansa Yogananda say to other disciples, "Look how I have changed Walter." Walter was his given name. And through that practice, Guru reformed the disciple. It was not by techniques alone. So we should always live in God's presence and depend on God and ask for His help. Seek out His help in prayer, through meditation, through affirmation, but always have it in mind that it is God's power which transforms us. Thank you.